Hey there, and welcome to Momma Drama and Trauma. I'm your host, Jenny Kimmel. As we head into a new year, I think so many of us feel this quiet pause. Not necessarily excitement, not necessarily dread, just this moment where we start asking ourselves deeper questions. How do I want to carry myself into this next year? How do I want to feel in my body, in my heart, in my life? What am I no longer willing to drag with me just because I always have? Because going into a new year doesn't have to mean reinventing yourself. It doesn't have to mean shrinking yourself. And it definitely doesn't have to mean punishing yourself. And as we wrap up this year together, after everything this year has held, I wanted this final episode to feel different. Not heavy, not triggering, not full of pressure to be better or do more. I wanted it to feel empowering, encouraging, and grounding as we step into a brand new year. So today, we're not talking about resolutions. We're not talking about weight loss, productivity, hustle, or fixing yourself. Instead, I want to invite you into something softer. Something more intentional. Today, we're talking about choosing one word for 2026, a word that represents how you want to feel, how you want to live, and how you want to show up for yourself. And I'll share mine too. Why one word, not resolutions? I want to start here because this matters more than people realize, especially at the end of a year like this one. This time of year comes with so much noise. Everywhere you look, there's pressure to reset, to reinvent yourself, to come back in January as someone more disciplined, more productive, more put together. The message is subtle, but it's everywhere. You should be better by now. And for some people, that kind of fresh start feels exciting. But for a lot of us, especially those who've lived through heartbreak, betrayal, divorce, grief, or just years of emotional survival, it feels overwhelming. Because when you've spent a long time just trying to make it through the day, the idea of starting over doesn't feel inspiring. It feels exhausting. It can feel like one more thing you're failing at before the year is even over. And I don't know about you, but I've never been great at New Year's resolutions. They usually sound good in December and feel like a failure by February because resolutions tend to focus on changing the outside. My body, my habits, my productivity, my appearance. But what I've learned, especially through divorce, heartbreak, and healing, is this. When the inside isn't healed, no outside change ever feels like enough. So instead of resolutions, I love the idea of choosing one word. One word that becomes your anchor, one word that guides your decisions, one word that reminds you who you are becoming, not who you're trying to fix. This isn't about perfection. It's about intention. And that difference matters more than we're ever taught because resolutions usually come from pressure, from comparison, from the belief that who we are right now isn't acceptable, but intention comes from compassion, from awareness, from finally telling the truth about where you are without shaming yourself for it. I don't think most people fail at resolutions because they're lazy or undisciplined. I think they fail because they're trying to change the outside while the inside is still hurting. You can't outwork grief. You can't diet your way out of heartbreak. You can't force your nervous system into feeling safe again. And so many of us, especially moms, walk into January already depleted, already tired, already carrying so much, telling ourselves, this is the year I'll finally get it together. But what if getting it together isn't what you actually need? What if what you need is steadiness instead of pressure, gentleness instead of goals, safety instead of striving? That's where one word becomes powerful. A word isn't loud, it's not performative, it doesn't demand that you announce it or prove it or live up to it perfectly. A word is quiet. It's personal. It's something you come back to when you're overwhelmed, triggered, or tired of being strong. When your life has been shaken, simplified, or stripped down, you don't need big dramatic goals. You need anchors. A word becomes an anchor, something you can hold on to on the days you feel lost, on the days old patterns start creeping back in, on the days you're tempted to abandon yourself again just to keep the peace. A word doesn't ask you to become someone new. It invites you to come home to yourself. And if the last few years have been about survival, about getting through, holding it together, protecting your kids, managing the fallout, then this next year doesn't need to be about doing more. It can be about being more present, more grounded, more honest, more kind to yourself. I know there are people listening right now who aren't stepping into the new year with excitement. They're stepping into it with hope, but also fear, thinking, I just want it to hurt less. I just want to feel steady again. I just want peace inside my own body. And if that's you, I want you to hear this clearly. You don't need to reinvent yourself in 2026. You don't need to fix who you are. You don't need a list of resolutions to prove your worth. You just need something steady to hold on to while you keep healing. And that's why we're starting here with one word. My word for 2026 is peace. So if we're talking about choosing one word for 2026, I want to share mine with you, not because I think it's the right word for everyone, but because it's the most honest word for me. My word for 2026 is peace, and that word didn't come lightly. Peace isn't just a pretty word to me. It's not something I picked because it sounds calm or aesthetic or spiritual. I chose peace because I know what it feels like to live without it. For a long time, longer than I even realized, my nervous system lived in a constant state of tension, always waiting for the next shoe to drop, always bracing, always trying to keep everything together. Peace is what was missing when I was walking on eggshells. Peace is what was missing when I was over-explaining, over-functioning, and over-giving. Peace is what was missing when my body was exhausted, but my mind wouldn't shut off. So when I say peace, I'm not talking about a perfect life. I'm talking about an internal state. Peace for me means peace in my body, peace in my mind, peace in my home, peace in my relationships, peace in how I speak to myself. It means I'm no longer interested in chaos disguised as passion or intensity disguised as love. Peace means choosing calm over conflict, even when conflict feels familiar. Peace means stepping back instead of chasing. Peace means not needing to be understood by everyone. And that hasn't always been easy for me, because for a long time, chaos felt normal, dysregulation felt familiar, and silence felt uncomfortable. When you've lived in survival mode for years, peace can actually feel foreign at first, almost suspicious. Your body doesn't immediately trust it. You wonder, is this going to last? What am I missing? When is the other shoe going to drop? So choosing peace isn't passive, it's intentional. Peace means I walk away sooner now, not because I don't care, but because I care about myself. Peace means I say no without rehearsing an explanation in my head. Peace means I don't stay in conversations that leave me feeling small, confused, or emotionally unsafe. Peace means protecting my energy like it actually matters, because it does. And I think for a lot of us, especially women and moms, peace wasn't modeled for us. We were taught to push through, hold it together, keep the family running, absorb everyone else's emotions, be strong at the expense of ourselves. So peace can feel selfish at first. But here's the truth I had to learn. Peace isn't selfish. It's necessary. Peace is what allows you to show up regulated instead of reactive. Peace is what allows you to parent from presence instead of exhaustion. Peace is what allows you to hear your own intuition again. And peace doesn't mean nothing ever hurts. It means you don't abandon yourself when it does. Peace for me also means letting go of who I thought I had to be, letting go of the fixer, letting go of the peacekeeper, letting go of the version of me who thought love meant self-sacrifice. Peace means I don't chase closure anymore. I don't chase explanations. I don't chase people who are committed to misunderstanding me. I choose rest. I choose space. I choose clarity. And maybe the most important part of peace for me is this. Peace means feeling safe inside my own body, not living in fight or flight, not constantly bracing for impact, not waking up every day already tired. Peace means my shoulders drop, my breath deepens, my thoughts slow down. It means my nervous system finally gets the message that I'm not in danger anymore. And I didn't realize how much I needed that until I started experiencing it, even in small moments. Moments of quiet, moments of laughter, moments where nothing was wrong. And instead of rushing past those moments, peace taught me to stay. So when I say my word for 2026 is peace, I'm not saying everything will be perfect. I'm saying this. I'm choosing a life that feels calm more often than it feels chaotic. I'm choosing relationships that feel safe, not confusing. I'm choosing myself even when it's uncomfortable. And if peace resonates with you, maybe that's your word too. But if it doesn't, that's okay. Because your word might be safety, grounded, gentle, free, whole, enough, or whatever word works for you. The point isn't the word itself. The point is choosing something that your body recognizes as relief, something that feels like a deep breath instead of a demand. Because after everything you've survived, you don't need another year of pressure. You deserve a year that feels steady. You deserve a year that feels kind. You deserve a year that feels peaceful, whatever that looks like for you. Choosing your word for 2026. So now I want to turn this toward you, because this episode isn't just about my word, it's about yours. And before we go any further, I want to take the pressure off right now. There is no right word. There is no impressive word. There is no word you have to explain or justify to anyone else. This is for you. Your word doesn't need to sound strong. It doesn't need to sound healed. It doesn't need to sound like you've got everything figured out. It just needs to be honest. I want you to imagine 2026 not as a year you have to conquer, but as a year you get to move through, slowly, intentionally, with care. And the best way I know how to do that is to choose a word that reflects how you want to feel, not how you want to perform. Some words might already be floating around in your mind. Others might come from your body before your brain catches up. Your word might be peace, healing, grounded, gentle, free, safe, whole, enough, aligned, present, steady. And if none of those feel right, that's okay. Your word might be something entirely different. So instead of thinking, what should my word be? I want you to ask yourself a few softer questions. Ask yourself, how do I want to feel when I wake up most mornings this year? What does my nervous system need more of? What am I craving that I've been denying myself? What am I done chasing? What am I ready to release? And here's an important one. What would feel like relief if it showed up more often in my life? Because your word should feel like relief, not pressure. When you say it quietly to yourself, notice what your body does. Do your shoulders drop? Does your breath slow down? Do you feel even a tiny sense of calm? That's how you know you're close. And I also want to say this. Your word doesn't have to represent where you are right now. It can represent where you're headed. You can choose a word that feels like a stretch, but not a strain. There's a difference. A stretch feels hopeful. A strain feels exhausting. If your word feels heavy, forced, or like something you have to live up to, it's probably not the right one. Your word should feel like permission. Permission to slow down, permission to say no, permission to rest, permission to stop proving, permission to be exactly where you are without apologizing for it. And once you choose your word, here's what I want you to do with it. Don't turn it into a rule. Don't turn it into another way to judge yourself. Let it become a filter. When you're faced with a decision, big or small, ask yourself, does this move me closer to my word or further away? When you're overwhelmed, come back to it. When you're triggered, come back to it. When you're unsure, come back to it. Your word isn't something you achieve. It's something you return to. And it's okay if your word changes. It's okay if it takes you a while to find it. It's okay if you need to sit with this longer than one listen. This isn't a race. This is your life. So if you're listening right now, I want to invite you to pause. Even just for a moment, take a breath, let your body soften, and ask yourself gently, what do I need most this year? Whatever comes up, trust that, because your word will meet you where you are and quietly help guide you forward. A fresh start that actually starts on the inside. Here's something I really want to say clearly, because I think so many of us need to hear it, especially at the beginning of a new year. A fresh start doesn't mean reinventing yourself. It doesn't mean erasing who you were last year. And it definitely doesn't mean pretending you weren't hurt. A real fresh start doesn't begin on January 1st. It begins inside you. We've been taught that a new year means new habits, new goals, new bodies, new lives. But when you've been through something that cracked you open, divorce, betrayal, grief, trauma, burnout, the idea of new can feel disconnected from reality because you're not starting from scratch, you're starting from experience, and that matters. A fresh start that begins on the outside says, let me change how I look. Let me do more. Let me fix what's wrong with me. But a fresh start that begins on the inside says, let me listen to myself. Let me slow down. Let me heal what's been ignored. And that kind of fresh start is quieter. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need validation. It happens in the moments no one sees. It happens when you stop forcing yourself to be okay, when you allow rest without guilt, when you notice your body tightening and you pause instead of pushing through. A fresh start on the inside is when you stop asking, what's wrong with me, and start asking, What happened to me and what do I need now? That shift alone can change everything, because when you've spent years surviving, you often lose touch with yourself. You get used to functioning, you get good at coping, you learn how to keep going, even when something inside you is screaming for attention. And then the new year comes, and instead of compassion, we pile on expectations. But healing doesn't respond to pressure. Healing responds to safety. A fresh start on the inside looks like learning to feel safe in your own body again. It looks like regulating your nervous system instead of ignoring it. It looks like choosing environments, relationships, and routines that don't constantly keep you in fight or flight. It looks like recognizing that you don't need to do more to be worthy of rest. You don't need to earn peace. You don't need to prove that you've suffered enough to deserve ease. You already do. And here's something else that matters. When you start healing on the inside, the outside stops being the focus. You stop obsessing over how you look. You stop measuring your worth by productivity. You stop comparing your timeline to everyone else's. Because when you feel grounded internally, you're not constantly seeking something external to make you feel okay. You start choosing differently. You respond instead of react. You pause instead of push. And slowly, sometimes so slowly you barely notice, things begin to feel lighter. Not perfect, but steadier. A fresh start on the inside also means letting go of the belief that healing has a deadline. You're not behind. You're not late. You didn't miss your chance. You're right where you are, because this is where your body and heart could bring you. And instead of asking yourself to rush forward, this year might be asking you to stay present, to be with yourself, to trust yourself, to stop leaving yourself every time something gets uncomfortable. Because the truest fresh start isn't about becoming someone new. It's about coming back to who you were before the world taught you to ignore your own needs. And if all you do this year is choose yourself more gently than you did last year, that counts. That's growth. That's healing. That's a real beginning. Gentle, attainable goals that actually serve you. So now that we've talked about choosing a word, about starting from the inside, I want to talk about goals, but not the kind of goals most of us are used to hearing about this time of year. Not the loud ones, not the performative ones, not the ones built on pressure, comparison, or punishment. I want to talk about gentle goals, the kind that actually serve you, not exhaust you. Because if you've been through trauma, heartbreak, burnout, or long seasons of survival, your nervous system doesn't need more demands. It needs consistency, safety, and compassion. So instead of goals like, I'm going to completely change my life, I'm going to fix everything this year, I'm going to become a different person. What if your goals sounded more like this? I will check in with myself daily, even briefly. I will listen when my body tells me it's tired. I will stop forcing myself to push through just to prove I can. I will choose rest without guilt. Those are goals that heal. And here's something I really want you to hear. Your goals don't need to be impressive to be meaningful. They don't need to look good on social media. They don't need to make sense to anyone else. They don't need to be measurable in numbers. They just need to support the version of you that's still healing. Gentle goals might look like going to bed earlier when you can, drinking water before coffee, taking a walk without turning it into exercise, saying no without explaining, pausing before responding when you're emotionally flooded. These things might sound small, but small is where safety is built. And when safety is built, healing follows. I think so many of us were taught that growth has to hurt, that if we're not pushing, striving, or struggling, we're not doing enough. But what I've learned is this. Growth can also look like softening. It can look like choosing ease where you used to choose chaos. It can look like letting yourself be human instead of perfect. It can look like releasing the belief that you have to earn rest. So when you think about your goals for this year, let your word guide you. If your word is peace, ask, does this bring more calm into my life or more stress? If your word is gentle, ask, am I being kind to myself in this moment? If your word is grounded, ask, does this help me feel more present in my body? Your word becomes the filter. Your goals become the support system. And remember, goals are not rules. You're not failing if you miss a day. You're not behind if you move slowly. You're not weak if you need rest. Healing isn't linear, and neither is growth. Some days, your only goal might be to get through the day, and that's enough. Some days, your goal might be to do nothing at all, and that's allowed. This year doesn't have to be about proving anything. It can be about trusting yourself, listening to yourself, choosing yourself again and again, even when it's uncomfortable. And if all you do in 2026 is move a little closer to your word, a little further away from what drains you, and a little deeper into yourself, that's not just a good year. That's a meaningful one. As we close out this episode, and as we stand right at the edge of a new year, I want to invite you to pause for just a moment. Take a breath, unclench your jaw, drop your shoulders, let your body catch up to where you are right now. If this past year changed you, if it broke things open, if it asked more of you than you ever expected to give, you're not behind, you're not doing it wrong, and you don't need to have anything figured out before the clock strikes midnight. The end of the year doesn't require closure. It doesn't require answers. It doesn't require you to tie everything up neatly. It simply marks a transition. So as we move into the final days of this year and into a brand new one, I hope you choose your word gently. I hope you let it guide you, not pressure you. I hope you allow yourself to move slower than the world tells you to. And I hope you remember that healing doesn't reset on January 1st. It continues exactly where you are. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to do one small thing. Take a moment to name your word, even if it's just quietly to yourself. And if it feels right, share it. Write it down. Text it to someone you trust, leave it in the comments, let it be something you come back to when things feel heavy. As you celebrate ringing in the new year, I hope you do so safely, in whatever way feels right for you, big or small, loud or quiet. And may this coming year meet you with peace, steadiness, healing, and moments of unexpected joy. May the year ahead be gentle with you. May it be kind. May it bring you closer to yourself. Wishing you and yours a safe, peaceful, hopeful, and happy new year. And as always, you are strong, you are worthy, and your story matters. Until next time, take care of you.